Charter Commission to study the form of government of the municipality, to compare it with other available forms under the laws of the state, to determine whether in its judgment the government of the municipality could be strengthened, made more clearly responsive or accountable to the people, or whether its operation could be more economical or efficient under a changed form of government. Okay. Guess now it's time for the roll call.
Nancy Facey Blackwood,
Present.
Mark Taylor,
Here.
Michael Dupont, Michael,
Here.
Ben Forrest,
Hill.
Catherine Oaks,
join
Kate
later.
Oakson.
Here.
Well, thank you. So tonight we have a public input hearing night. We're here to listen to your questions, feedback, and concerns regarding the current form of government as a conclusion to phase 1 of our study. Additionally, residents are welcome to offer input and commentary germane to the next phase of the study, which will look at other forms of government applicable to Red Bank. We ask that your comments be succinct, direct, and remain focused on government form and function. We're grateful for your participation and are documenting your input. As this is a forum for you, we will be limiting our own responses and commentary. Please remember this is a public comment period and not a question and answer session. As we transition into phase 2, your input will be used to help guide our discussions as we speak with experts and other municipalities with various forms of government. So the example questions that we have that are central to our focus is, do you think the current government is effective? Do you feel well represented? Sorry, not speaking well today. What qualities do you value from your government? What aspects are important to you? And what are your thoughts on how we elect the council? So prior to the meeting, we did post public input hearing questions. It was on the agenda that was posted, as well as posted on Facebook, as well as on the Charter Commission website. So at this point, I think it's okay to get started. Is there a motion to open the input session?
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
Second.
Aye. All in favor? Great. All right, let's go.
Aye.
Dan Reardon is up first.
Okay.
Go ahead, Dan.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so I'll get to your questions in a sec, but first I wanted to talk about something for phase 2. And that is, I'd like you to consider a special charter. I know it's a pain in the butt, but I think it could be very helpful, both in because it gives us some flexibility. So for instance, we could change the division of responsibilities between the mayor and the administrator, or even define them better, because they're really poorly defined in the statutes for most of these forms of government. I would like to see more stringent requirements for executive session. I don't know if that's in your power or not. I'd like to find out. For elections, for instance, if you wanted a 3-year term, but you wanted to have concurrent elections, not one of your options. You might want to have a term length that's different. I'd like you to consider 2 years, for example. You could do a different combination of wards and at large. There's only a few, you only have a few options in the statute. I would love to see if you could do term limits or campaign finance or a lot of other things that are probably beyond your scope, but I'd like you to at least explore whether they're beyond. Your counsel will probably tell you no, but but the main reason that I'd like you to consider this special charter is that all of the forms that you have a choice of, aside from the borough, keeping the borough, they politicize the form of government. The council can, by ordinance, make a number of changes to the form of government. They can change the number of councilors. They can change from partisan to nonpartisan or vice versa. They can move the election from November to May. There are a number of things that they can do as a council to change the form of government without any referendum or charter study or anything. So I think our council has recently demonstrated Borough gives them one way to modify the form of government, and that's to give some executive power to the administrator. They've done that twice in the last 4 years, switched and then switched back. So they've demonstrated, the council has clearly demonstrated that they're willing to monkey with the form of government if you let them. A special charter, they can't. It requires another charter study commission back to the state legislature. So please consider it. All right, so now to your questions. Do the day-to-day operations of government seem to be handled effectively? I got to say yes, in general. The borough administration, when I need them, they generally meet or exceed my expectations. Do you feel the present form of borough government provides adequate representation? No. Because the borough form of government requires partisan elections, which means that we have primary elections, which disenfranchise 40% of our voters. They're unaffiliated. They do not get to participate in primaries. The party selection, the candidate selection process through the party is incredibly opaque. If a candidate is not endorsed by one of the two parties, they stand almost zero chance of getting on the council. No one ever has done it. So I think the partisanship is a big problem. I also think the borough allows people on the council to be involved in the day-to-day operation of the borough, which, if you know a council person, you can get some things done that the rest of us can't. It's, a fact of life. Also, the fact that there are only 6 people on the council and that there are no term limits the number of people who can be on council. There aren't that many council openings. I'd like to see more. Okay, strengths and weaknesses of the borough form of government. One of the strengths is that the borough has the ability to invest executive authority in the business administrator. I think that's a good thing. And on the other side, the council does not have any other powers to change the form of government. I think that's good. Council shouldn't be changing the form of government. Weaknesses, by default, most of the executive power is in the legislative body. So the council is both legislature and executive. We lose those checks and balances that we learn so much about in school. I also think that 6 co-equal executives plus the mayor, whatever executive role he has, and an administrator, whatever role he has, creates confusion and inefficiency. I think you guys have heard from many interviewees about this exact problem, that having 7 executives plus an administrator creates inefficiencies. And the GSG report, which interviewed a number of employees, found the same thing, that employees said, we don't know who to listen to. I think it also creates a situation in your interview with Councilperson Ballard. He said that he does go directly to borough employees to get things done. And when asked why would he do that, one of the things he said was, well, because the council majority blocks me from getting these things done through the council. So what he essentially said was, I have to go directly to employees so that I can thwart the council's will. It's terrible that just anyone on council can go right around the majority of the council and do what they want. So, so I think you got to get the executive powers out of the council. I mentioned that not many people can get in office because of the term limits and lack of term limits, a small number of people. I also found the small number of people on the council has a tendency to create a kind of club atmosphere. I remember I think it was one of the commissioners said, when on council, we could fight all day in the council chambers and then go out for a drink afterwards. I'm a little uncomfortable with that. The public should be at that having drinks with you. It does create a small club, and part of the problem is when that club gets a fracture, it's really bad. That's what we're seeing now. I think it's way too personal with a small number of council people. And I mentioned I don't want partisan elections, and that's a requirement of boroughs. So what do you want your local government to be? So my top priority is transparency. Residents should be able to see everything that's going on. So everything that is the public's business should be done in public. If a council person is, for instance, interacting with a borough employee, there should be minutes of that meeting, and those minutes should be available to the public. I also think it is odd to me that the council on purpose forms committees that are exactly small enough to avoid the need to tell the public what they're saying. I can appreciate that sometimes things need to be kept out of the public eye, but the committees that are formed for the express purpose of keeping council business out of the public eye. That's not where it should be. I think transparency ensures honesty. If you can't see it, how can you trust it? I also think consistency is important. Routine matters should be handled in a routine way, not on a case-by-case basis. So if I have a problem, it should be handled in a routine way, not by going to someone on the council who can then get around the routine. And I think this consistency is another reason why I don't want the council to be able to change the form of government with an ordinance. I also like a diversity of opinion. So a lot of people have said, oh, our council's so divided, that's terrible. Like, no, it's good that our council is divided. I was very happy when we had Republicans on the council. There has to be somebody who is saying, wait a minute, somebody who's saying, no, no, no. There has to be that. Otherwise, I think no one really knows what's going on. Everyone just agrees. So I think when we have a diversity of opinion, we get the best decisions, and we better represent the diversity of opinion in the community. So that's another priority for me. And I also think it needs to be well delineated. Everyone should be able to understand what everyone's responsibility is. I don't think that's the case now. So, all right, next question, which aspects of local government are most important to you? No, I just answered that one. Wait. What do you want your local government to be? Okay, so as far as what aspects are important, I think short terms are important and term limits. So I think 4 years is a pretty long term. 2 years would be better. The New Jersey Assemblymen, they get elected every 2 years, pretty much to a full-time job with a much steeper learning curve. I think 2 years is long enough. And I would love to see term limits. I don't know if you guys have that power, but if you do, you've been on the council for 8 years, let someone else have a chance. I also would like to see a larger council. So I'd like to see 9, actually. Seems unwieldy, but again, more voices, the better. How would I like local elections conducted? So I like concurrent elections. So I would like to see all of the council members elected at the same time. Council members and the mayor all elected at the same time. I think the way we have it now with a campaign every year injects politics into every decision. Someone is always thinking, how will this affect my reelection? If we had it concurrent, there would be some years where no one would care how it would affect their reelection. I think that that would help in the decision making. I also think that campaigns every year dilute voter interest. It's just constant campaigns. So I would like to see concurrent elections. I would like to see nonpartisan elections. I want all voters to have an equal say. I want all potential ballot candidates to have the same opportunities on the ballot. And I want all the candidates to have the same rules to get on the ballot. So if independents have to get a certain number of signatures to get on the ballot, that's how everyone should do it. There shouldn't be okay, party says you're on. I don't want wards. I think we're too small for that. There's also some research out there that says wards have bad effects, but that has to do with cities. We're just too small for wards. Again, to your terms, I want direct election of the mayor. At least one of the formats that you're considering has an option of the council electing the mayor. I would like to see the people elect the mayor. If you can do anything about campaign finance, please do. That could be restricting campaign spending or campaign contributions, or just transfers between campaigns. So wheeling of campaign funds. I just saw that there's a town nearby that has a hard limit on contributions from contractors, people who will then get contracts from the borough. I would love to see that. If you give a candidate more than $300, you can't do any business with the borough. So those are all my comments. Thanks very much. Oh, Nancy, you're muted.
Thank you very much for your input, Dan. I've been typing everything you've said, so.
I'll send you my notes in case in case I skip something.
Okay.
All right,
Thank
thanks.
you. Okay, sure. All right, do we have anyone else?
Oh, I could go on.
I think there are some other hands that are raised. Yeah. Bonnie, can you tell us or help us out? Okay.
Hello, Phil Blackwood, 34 Chestnut Street.
Hi, Phil.
I'd like to thank you for all the good work you've done so far. It's been very informative, and I think especially having the interviews, people were candid. We got a variety of opinions, and very, very, very educational. So I would like my local government to be forward-looking, and I'm a advocate for action on climate change. And to me, climate change is a perfect example of a long-term interest that gets overshadowed by a lot of day-to-day issues and concerns. And I think there are some things about the current form of government and the way we elect people that tend to make that happen, or exacerbate it. So for example, every year we have a primary election and a general election for council. And to me, it's sort of like companies that are only looking at the next quarter's profits. It's a way to discourage having a vision. It results in lack of vision. Apparently, some council members prefer to, be involved in the day-to-day activities. I would prefer to have them working on the longer term vision and the policies, and think in terms of not so much, policies that work regardless of who has a position. So when I listen to council meetings, I always come away thinking, where's the strategy? Where's the vision? Where's the discussion about where we're going? It always seems like there's very little of it. And finally, I think the way that our New Jersey system of elections works is nuts, to put it bluntly. This is not a precise description, but yeah, it's sort of like one person picks 18 people who pick our candidates for us. And so when you walk into the poll at primary time, there are no choices. It's like, here are your candidates. You can vote for them or, not vote for them. So, and that's really a New Jersey thing. And since, for the past 5 years, I've sort of, been aware of that and the effects. So, with the system we have, anybody who's not connected has just about zero chance of getting elected. And so to me, that robs voters of choices. It's unfair and it's undemocratic. So I have a request, which is before you finish your work and issue your report, and I would say that although we got a lot of really great information from all the interviews, I don't think there was a whole lot of discussion about how people are elected today. So my request is that you document how the system works today of getting on the ballot and who has what powers. What are the powers of the county chair? What are the powers of the local municipal chairs? How does this group of 18 get selected? How do they get on the ballot? And not only what the rules are, but what the traditions are. And then in addition to that, of course, also spell out what the alternatives are. Because I'm very disappointed, or maybe that's not the right word, but I really don't think the way New Jersey holds elections, including the way we elect the mayor and council, is very good, but I really don't understand the alternatives very well. So there are always pros and cons. I'm, leaning toward anything's got to be better, but you never know, and the devil's in the details. So please be thorough about that. And to me, that's a priority, because I think we not only heard from a lot of people that if you have good people, you can kind of make anything work. So the way we elect people is very important, but not only that, but I think it's getting in the way of our mayor and council being forward-looking. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, anyone else?
Hello.
Okay. Hello.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good evening, everyone. This is John Jackson. I'm at 133 East Bergen Place. And for those who don't know, I am a county committee member, as well as the county committee nominated candidate for council for this year. So just that disclosure before we begin. And yeah, I'm anxious. I'm even more anxious to answer these questions now, given some of the responses I've just heard. And I definitely think there's an opportunity to clarify some misinformation and offer definitely a point counterpoint. So I will dive into the questions. Thank you to the commission for providing them. Do the day-to-day operations of our borough government seem to be handled effectively? I do feel that way. I do feel that the borough form of government is functioning well for a town of our size. I have had the good fortune of attending council meetings and other involvement, political engagement in town, and it basically comes down to when people do their jobs well, then stuff gets done. So I think, the focus, as much as I appreciate, obviously I ran for the position as well, as much as I appreciate the Charter Study Commission conducting this research into an alternate form of government and ultimately making a recommendation. I think that, definitely key to any form of government success is who's in place and how they're working together. Do I feel that the present form of borough government provides adequate representation for all residents? I do. I like to see a cross-section of citizens serving on our council. We have that from, I believe, like a professional background right now. Obviously, we have a government right now that is, entirely Democrat. I personally don't mind that. I think for the most part, that does reflect the political leanings of Red Bank residents for the most part. Not entirely, of course, but for the most part. Next, what are the major strengths and weaknesses of the present borough form of government? I feel like that our government is actually very approachable. There was a mention of Councilman Ballard's name before, and it was a little distressing to hear that his involvement or his connections with borough employees was considered thwarting the majority of the council. That's actually one of the things I love most about Councilman Ballard is the fact that he actually does, reach out immediately to try to get a solution. He reaches out directly to residents. In a town our size, I feel like that closeness and that approachability of our governing body is something I actually really look forward to. To be very honest with you, about a year or so ago, it was during COVID. I actually live adjacent to the Wells Fargo Bank, and my neighbor next door and I had an issue with the new lighting that was going to be installed. And my neighbor, because she's closer to the bank, it was affecting her even more. Councilman Ballard, called her directly, was on the calls with her, came over, reviewed the pictures with her, and just to know that there's that degree of dedication, I think is remarkable, and something that I personally do enjoy. The weaknesses of the present borough form of government, I don't know if this is necessarily a weakness that would go away with any other form of government, including nonpartisan, is the fact that despite having, all one party of a government, there still is, references to majority minority council. I feel like there definitely needs to be, everyone putting their heads together and saying, okay, let's make sure that everyone's interests are being represented, and that includes a minority and majority voice. And how do we meet in the middle? How do we really come together and say, okay, ABC want this, DEF want this, let's work it out, and for the betterment of the residents and not just a majority voice on the council. What do you want your local government to be? Some examples: transparent. Mr. Warden, mentioned transparency. Of course, absolutely. That was actually one of the points that I wanted to clarify. I believe one of the residents, perhaps it was Mr. Blackwood, had said that one person is picked to then, pick 18 people. I can only assume he was referring to the county committee. That is an elected position. It's important that everyone realize that, and that actual fact get out there. As a matter of fact, I'm not going to put Bonnie on the spot, but I actually just called her today in anticipation of this meeting tonight to verify when I was on the ballot. And it was a primary election a couple of years ago. My name was on the ballot as a county committee member to be elected. So they're not picked by anybody. They're elected by the residents. And then, yes, the county committee, as a body, then nominates candidates. Unfortunately, because of pending legislation, litigation, I can't say anything more about that, but I just wanted to clarify that point. I definitely want it to be decisive, representative of all citizens. This listing of things here is definitely, the holy grail of what any government, no matter what form, should be providing the residents. What aspects of local government are most important to you? How elections are conducted? Absolutely, it's very important to me. I do actually appreciate the two-phase primary and then general election For myself, I find, and I have been, a voter for decades. I've rarely missed an election, and I do vote in the primary as well. I know some people are averse to it. What I like about it is that leading up to the primary, it tends to be focused on the candidates. So it sort of, funnels down the number of candidates, and you learn about the candidates. And then between the primary and the general election, in a good campaign, the shift will then focus to a lot of the issues and how those selected candidates then feel and are going to address the issues facing the community. So that's just, I find that as personally, I find that a strong approach. Number of members on council, I feel it's adequate. I know Mr. Worden did say 9. That definitely feels, way too heavy for a town our size. I think what we have right now, including the mayor in his or her tie-breaking role when needed, 7 I think is adequate. How the budget is created. Finance, I'm going to be very honest, finance, I would need to speak with council member Angela Morandi. I know she, her background is so strong in finance. I would want to just pick her brain a little bit before answering something that is, not my strongest suit. How the mayor is selected, I feel is absolutely fine. And, just the same way that the council members are selected. I think, if there are comments like only 10 people are needed to pick your mayor. I mean, again, you've got 18 members of an elected body that are serving as surrogates, much like the Electoral College or much like, our own elected officials, such as State Senator Vin Gopal. We're electing them so that they can then speak or advocate or legislate on our behalf. It's a nominating step that then goes to a vote, either in the primary or the general election, so that citizens and residents can vote. It's not here, however, I just want to add one thing. There's been a lot of discussion about, engaging people, are unaffiliated, engaged, et cetera. I mean, I want everybody to make an effort to get people to get out and vote more. There's been so much discussion about unaffiliated. I mean, voter turnout isn't what it could be anyway across the board, whether it's a primary or a general election. I would like, and it's comparatively easy. I mean, for those of us here in Red Bank, your voting location hopefully is not more than a few blocks from your home. And of course, given COVID, there have been, new alternatives to vote with a mail-in ballot, et cetera, or early voting. I want to see voter turnout go up personally. Terms, I think the terms are sufficient, 3 to 4 years. I know some people do favor shorter terms. Again, I think the earlier mention was 2 years. My viewpoint is exactly the opposite. I even think that, assembly people or the House of Representatives, 2 years is not a sufficient amount of time to really have that newly elected person gain traction and do something substantive. I feel like 4 years would be a good stretch for a term so that they can, make connections, really put together a plan and then actually see it through rather than it get bounced to the possibly new candidate that comes next. That being said, I definitely do agree with term limits overall. Whether it's at the local level or the Fed or the national level, people like Chris Smith who have been in their position for 40 years, that's just ridiculous. So how would you like local elections conducted? So yearly or less frequently. So there was a good point raised about them all being clustered on the, in the same year. However, back to my point about, increasing, voter engagement and voter turnout, I would like to believe that that staggered council terms at least gives us a reason on a local level to go to the polls every year. If we could do something about, larger or greater voter turnout, maybe that's, we could condense them or consolidate them at a future time, but I don't think now is the time for that. Ballots with a party line, that's how we do it right now. I'm in agreement and fine with that. and ballots without a party line, equal placement for all candidates. So I am going to take this opportunity on that last point to just jump into an extra point, a bonus point. If we are going to put everybody, if the commission were to recommend nonpartisan, and I know, it's come up a couple of times, and especially with last week's questioning, some commissioners have given an opinion on it. It would be fine for everyone to be on the same line if everything is equal across the board, and that includes campaign finance. I know Mr. Worden did raise that as well. 100% in agreement with that. If we are going to have everyone be treated the same as a candidate, as a candidate for either nomination or going on the ballot, everything about their campaign needs to be equal, including funds that they can access for campaigning. And that would mean if we're going to be nonpartisan, we have to truly be nonpartisan. That means, making sure that we steer clear of partisan contributions, so that all candidates, including the unaffiliated, are treated equally. And that is all I have.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up is John Gosden.
Oh, hi, sorry, my dog just started barking
That's okay.
right as I got on. Hey, I just want to say to all of you, I haven't been able to watch everyone, but I have watched them, and I think you're all doing a great job. I really appreciate all the questions that you're asking and all the different people that came to it. So I just want you to know, I think this whole thing is a great thing. It's the most democratic thing I've ever seen in Red Bank. And, but I'm going to kind of cut to the chase a little bit. I don't think I'm going to ask every question. I do want to say that I'm a fan of Dan Reardon, and I pretty much ditto everything that he said. I would like to comment on your first question about day-to-day operations. I live across the street from the park, and I often walk downtown into Red Bank with my dog, and I don't think that things are handled well day to day. And I'm just going to say one example is there's on the weekend and after the weekend, there's garbage all over this Broad Street and Red Bank and around Broad Street. I've complained about it many times. I see people on social media posting pictures and complaining about it. And the downtown of Red Bank is like the jewel of the crown. I don't understand how that's not taken care of. Why we haven't hired anyone, but to me, when I see that every day, my answer to that question about day-to-day operations being handled effectively is no way. I mean, as long as there's garbage all around the town, there's no way day-to-day operations are being handled effectively. So, and just, I know Mark knows how I feel, and I became friends with Ben when I was running for the Charter Study Commission. We bumped into each other all the time. We were joking around about going door to door together. But I'm for nonpartisan elections for a few reasons. One reason, the major reason, is for Red Bank. I don't feel I'm represented. I've been unaffiliated for almost 20 years, except when Kate Trigiano and sorry, I forgot when they ran opposed in the primary. That was the first primary election that I can remember in Red Bank where candidates didn't go unopposed. So I went to vote, and I guess that forces me to become a Democrat temporarily, which I don't believe in. I don't feel that I should have to be forced to join a party to participate in a primary. But regardless, 90% of the time, why does it matter? 90% 90% of the primaries in New Jersey go unopposed. I mean, I don't see how that is democracy at all in play. And I think, you know, for you to choose nonpartisan elections to be on the ballot, which ultimately the town will choose, would be a very good thing, because I want to be represented. I want to be represented from square one. I don't want somebody else picking my candidates from the Republican, the Democratic Party, especially the unaffiliated registered voters are almost as many as the Democrats in Red Bank and in the state of New Jersey. So it's you know, when I first moved to Red Bank and everything, and I started paying attention to the local government, you know, word on the street is that the town is run by a boys club. And, you know, you don't believe that at first, but when you want to do things and you want to be active, you start feeling that. You feel that you can't participate unless you agree with them. And it's just not fair. It's just a little town. It's a little town, and everybody should have a say from the beginning. So I hope you include nonpartisan, and if there's any space for a referendum initiative, I hope you consider that too, because I think it's all about the people having a say. And that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you, John. Okay, are there any other raised hands? Mary Ellen Mess, you have the floor.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
First of all, let me say that I always admired Dan Reardon's attention to detail, and he makes the rest of us look really bad. So I'll try to hold my own here. But I would have to agree with Mr. Gosden that I don't think the day-to-day operations of the town are without problems. And with regard to what Mr. Jackson or Mr. Johnson? Was his name Jackson or Johnson, the gentleman?
It was Jackson.
Jackson, Mr. Jackson. And now I was so focused on his name, I don't remember what I was going to say. But anyway, so I do think there are problems. My concern is this role of the business administrator, because it really worries me to have more power given to the business administrator, because I don't think we've had a good business administrator since Sally Levine left. And there are a lot of things that don't get done. And there are some really big gaffes in which no one is held accountable, whether it's a $400,000 over expenditure in a department budget, or it's millions of dollars of underbilling of, you know, water usage by the hospital. We've had like a lot of mismanagement, and there never seems to be any consequence to anyone. The only consequence is that the taxpayers continue to foot the bill. So that I'm ambivalent about this whole process and changing the form of government, but that idea of investing more authority and power in one person concerns me, because I think a big problem in town has been that the council has not held the business administrator accountable. And I don't know that changing the players or the form of government is going to really solve that problem. So I guess that's all I'm going to say because I can't remember my point about Mr. Jackson's comments, but maybe I'll see you again at a later date and I will have remembered it by then. Thank you for your service, even though I don't agree with everything that you do.
Thank you very much, Mary Ellen. Okay. Who's next?
Amy Humphries.
Okay. Hi, Amy, please unmute
Hi.
yourself.
I just have to unmute something else too. I'm trying to do 2 meetings here at once. I just have a few comments. Thank you all for your efforts. I think it's great to have this discussion. I think that's really important that the dialogue and the communication is going on. I don't know how many people are on this meeting, but it was made, lots of notice was made publicly on Tap Into and Red Bank Green and in other areas for people to participate. And usually I've found that very few people do. And also I found when I was serving as a council person in Fairhaven, very few people come to the fore to even be on the ballot as a placeholder. Finding candidates and getting participation from the community is a wonderful goal, but it doesn't happen very easily. There's a lot of lack of volunteering. There's a lot of apathy. Even though community members may complain about this or that, they don't do anything. And it's unfortunate because, you know, we're all talking about having more participation, but where are the people? So it's not just that only these people get picked that we're having on our ballots. It's because those are the ones that have stepped forward and gotten engaged and gotten involved. So it's you know, easy to say, well, we change this and change that and we'll have a better outcome. I still think one of the biggest problems we have in a small town and we have as a country is lack of participation, lack of information and involvement in these matters until there's a problem and then everybody's hands are waving at everything that they think has gone wrong. So I don't think the form of government or the style of government or when the elections are held or any of those things are going to make all that much difference. I think it's the people that step up and do what has to be done to be a part of their local government. As far as the comment about trash pickup, when I was in Fairhaven, I was the liaison with the DPW. And my experience was that it's very important for the council person who's the liaison with a particular department to stay in touch with that person. And if there's a complaint or you see, because you live here, that there's litter somewhere or that there's something that's not being taken care of properly, you address that. You go see the head of the Department of Public Works, you speak to the borough administrator and you get the problem solved. The borough administrator often doesn't even live in the town. They are responsible for getting what the council people and the mayor tell them needs to get done. So I think it's important that council people have interrelations with the different departments in the government that they're serving. Those are really the only two things I wanted to add. I did like the idea of campaign finance. I think that's very important to maybe make it more available for people to run for office. And also, I like term limits. I think that's very important as well. I don't think we should have 2-year terms. I think we should have 3 or 4 year terms and maybe do 2 3-year terms or 2 4-year terms as a limit. But you know, whether you have a mayor or a council or how many, it's the people and the system that they have in place for communicating with each other. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We have Mary Ellen Messick.
It's up to your discretion, Chair, but I know that the question policy has always been one round of questions per person. So I just want to let the public know that the public comment procedures that were set forth at our original meeting still remain in effect for this meeting.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, Michael, but I don't see any other hands raised at the
That's
moment.
fine.
I think it's okay if Mary Ellen
I
comes back.
suspect she remembered her point. Maybe we can hear it.
Yes, let's not distract her.
Actually, Ms. Humphries brought up another point that I think in a small town, we do rely on our elected officials to be available to us when we have a problem, particularly at a time when it's really important to get in touch with someone right away. It's our experience that people don't always answer their phones. For example, in a snowstorm, when you have a private contractor who's plowing a parking lot, but piling the snow in front of your home, you know, you want to get somebody there immediately. And if nobody's answering their phone, a lot of times we'll reach out to one of the council people or sometimes the mayor to, you know, help us get the action that we need to address a problem. And the other thing is this idea of, you know, opening up the electoral process to people who are not, quote, connected. You know, in order to be a successful candidate, you have to be connected in some way. So traditionally, it's you work your network through your political party. Without the partisan politics or the party endorsement, you know, then it's up to the individual to create their network out of whole cloth. I'm not sure that that's an easier process, but I think there are going to be issues inherent in any path that you choose. And I don't think that the playing field is necessarily going to be equitable or equal or fair across the board, because there are so many factors that are going to come into play. And, you know, you just have to look at who has been elected to the Charter Commission. Most of you are politically active, political insiders, active in the parties, and that helped you get elected. So, and there were a number of other candidates who were virtual unknowns who didn't have those connections and they didn't get any traction. So this idea that this is gonna solve everything, I just don't think is really accurate, believable, whatever the adjective you want to use. Anyway, that's it. Thank you very much for giving me a second chance to speak.
Thank you.
There's no other hands raised.
Okay. If anyone would like to say anything, please raise your hand, or if you're on a phone, I want to say it's *6,
Yes.
right, or *9 to *6 to unmute. I guess we'll give it like 30 more seconds. No? Anyone? No?
Nope.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to close the public portion, Chair.
Thank you. Any second?
Second.
Okay,
Unmute.
thank you. All in favor? Aye. And
Aye.
the portion is closed. Well, thank you very much. At this point, we've concluded our public input session, and the next item on the agenda are updates, if any, from the Charter Commission attorney.
Yes, good evening, Chair and Commissioners. Hope everyone's doing well. As I mentioned at our last meeting, we're looking to transition towards phase 2. And so the current intention is to have the April 6th meeting, which is Wednesday night, featuring Mr. Sastelli from the Department of Community Affairs, who's going to give his phase 2 PowerPoint outlining the different forms of government that are available to Red Bank. And I do think that that presentation is well timed. Based upon a lot of the comments we heard from the public tonight, I could tell a lot of people are certainly digging into the different options that are available. I will note most of the comments were certainly germane and accurate. There were a few things that from a legal standpoint may not be accurate. And so I think part of our work as a commission will be to interview the appropriate external parties. And certainly I'm glad to serve as a resource as well as we start to lay out the different options that'll be before the commission under the Faulkner Act. So again, 4-6, Mr. Sastelli will be speaking, and then we're currently confirming a Rutgers Eagleton professor who's done research on certain political science questions that involve forms of government. And she's tentatively confirmed for April 19th, which is a Tuesday. I spoke with her just this week, and she's certainly done a lot of political science research in this field, and I think will be very informative and thought-provoking. So those are my updates. Happy to answer any questions.
Oh, well, thank you. For assignment of work and next meeting actions, please continue your interviews. As you see it, if you have any trouble, please feel to reach out. And we'll be happy to try to get things done. Again, our goal is to complete phase 1 by the end of this month. And then we would just ask that you take your findings and then just submit it to our attorney, who would be happy to collate them and help prepare a report of our general findings. Okay, that being said, the next item is commission member remarks. Does anybody have anything they'd like to share? Don't all talk at once. It's fine.
Sure, Chair. I want to thank the public for coming tonight. We've heard from some of the same people, but I appreciate their commitment to our process as well. And I can also tell you, there were some people who were unable to attend the meeting, but they did send emails with written responses to our questions. So please know that your responses were noted and will be acknowledged and part of the input process for the commission. This is a public process. We were elected, publicly in a general election. So this is something that deeply important to the public in general. So we are available via our email or other means of contacting us for the resident input, which kind of ties into something else. I think there's a lot of perhaps Red Bank's kind of famous for like a bad game of telephone. You get the information and it passes along and gets distorted down the road. There's a lot of comment about interference with day-to-day operations or poor inner operations of the borough. Council people being responsive to residents is the job of the councilman. I think Councilman DuPont would agree with me. What that councilman does or councilperson does with that information is bring it back to somebody in the borough who can address the problem. So that's a very natural interface, an expectation, in my opinion at least, for the role of a councilperson to interface with the public. I had people reach out to me directly. Yeah, on a Sunday afternoon when it's snowing, you're not going to get somebody at DPU to pick up the phone and address the snowplow concern. But you can reach out to a council person who can then turn around and contact the BA or the department head. So those things are, I think, are standard. When you have council people going beyond those and directly trying to impact operations of individual employees, that's personally where I think that's inappropriate. I do also want to just mention that the council does not have the authority to change the form of government, despite some of the statements that were made. Strengthening an ordinance, weakening an ordinance does not change the form of government. That is frankly one of the unique aspects of the charter study, and it is put out for referendum for vote by the borough borough residents. So that is not something that can be done on a whim by the current council or any future council. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
And Madam Chair, I just wanted to point out, I think I speak, and Mark hit it on the head also, but we want to thank the public for attending this meeting. They brought up some great points. Some points are not valid. i.e. term limits, even though I brought the question up a few times. It's my understanding, based on my experience, that that can't happen. But I think that the public should know that everyone who is sitting on this board is extremely appreciative that you are listening, that your voices are being heard, and that we take good notes, and we do speak, and it's all in public. As you can see, sometimes it's awkward, sometimes it's jilted, but in the end, every one of your voices are heard. And this evening was a perfect example. So, from my personally, I just want to thank everyone for voicing their opinions, voicing complaints, as well as strengths and weaknesses of our borough form of government. We all live here, and we all have a common theme of working what's best for Red Bank. So that being said, I do appreciate everyone taking their time to ask questions, but more importantly, giving opinions. Mr. Reardon had some specific opinions. Some of them were a little far-reaching, but it's certainly worthy to be considered. Thanks, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Kate, do you have anything? Go ahead.
Like everybody else, I'm really grateful for the participation from Red Bank residents, and I appreciate folks using the email and sending us detailed communications about their input. I also would like to remind folks and ask you to remind the people that you come in contact with, because I think that that's an important piece of this, is that you're talking to your neighbors, that all of the videos of these meetings, and this one in particular, where people are sharing their ideas and things that are important to them, are stored, they're YouTube, but they're available through the Charter Study website, and posted through Facebook, so that if you have a hard time thinking about where to start, if our questions aren't enough, I'm sure that hearing other people talk about it may sort of, jolt you into sharing some of your own thoughts with us. I would hate to get a few more months down the line and people be upset that they hadn't participated earlier. And so I would just remind people, the time is of the essence with this. We can only serve for a few more months. There's your term limits. And so, baked right into this one. So it's a good opportunity to use the communication methods that we've got out there to reach out to us. So thank you.
Thank you, Kate. I would also like to thank everyone for coming to our meeting and participating. Your input is valuable to us. I also want to thank the people who have sent us emails with their input. It is greatly appreciated. I would also like to thank Carla Ortega Cuatle. I hope I said it correctly. Carla, for being here. Again, one of the concerns I personally do have is that we do have people in our community whose English is not their first language, and I want to make sure that we're reaching. So if you know someone who feels uncomfortable speaking in English at the meeting, just let us know, and we'll make sure that we'll have a translator available. And you can also, feel comfortable to send us an email, and we can get that translated. We're using the police translator program, so everyone's vetted and they take their role very seriously. They do an excellent job. So please tell your friends and, to invite them and come. I do want to hear, what people think. So thank you again. Okay. So moving on, motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
Anyone second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, well, thank you all for coming. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night.